Welcome, everybody. Mark Drumheller, Dave Gleckner, USFL Best Bets for Week 4, powered by the Sharp app. Guys, if you haven't topped into Discord yet, make sure you do. The link is below. We have so much going on. The Proptizer, daily prize picks. Make sure you subscribe as well to the YouTube channel for you guys watching on YouTube. We have daily picks popping off red hot. So make sure you get involved in the action by hitting the subscribe button. And while you're here, make sure you hit the like button as well. But listen, Dave, the XFL is wrapping up. We are moving on to the USFL. Very profitable year last year. So kind of excited to dip my feet, back into this league. 3 weeks in now. So we've kind of had an idea of, what teams are strong, kind of what we've seen. The one thing that stuck out to me so far, Dave, is, from a betting perspective, I think we're seeing the fruits of a little bit of continuity from some of the teams, right? The level of play is a lot cleaner than it was this time last year when these guys were starting off in their first year. They had a lot of players return for a second season. And I think that's kind of showed on the play in the field.
I agree. It's better football than last year. And maybe the XFL has helped kind of play into that. You've seen some players transfer over. Maybe some other guys just seeing spring football and saying, hey, I want to play in that now has helped them. You see names like Carson Strong, who, you're just seeing some better names in general start to play some football in the spring. And I think both can coexist. And the USFL is proving that right now. And they've modified some things, and it's been pretty clean. I've liked it so far.
I agree. And, you mentioned, listen, it's almost like more people trust the league, right? Not only as fans, when they first said that, hey, you know what, spring football, and, the players see it as well. They're probably like, hey, you know what, I've seen this before. I'm not trying to relocate and leave my family for 4 weeks for this thing to shut down, right? But, USFL getting through the first season, seeing the XFL get through the season, now the players are having more confidence that, hey, maybe this is a viable solution to get myself back into the league. The XFL just released, a media blast with a ton of players that are getting invites into camps. You're seeing that. So spring football is working from that perspective. And I think the more successful it is, the more better players are going to buy in, better product we're going to see on the field. Exactly.
Yeah, totally agree. They can definitely play off each other. And when we saw where guys in the USFL last year played with the XFL this year. So it's been good. And now they're in the spotlight. That's the key, right? The XFL is off for this whole week. They don't play their championship until next week. It's the USFL stage. And I've been able to catch a handful of games so far, been able to see some of the key players. So now it's a chance. The spotlight's there. So I can't wait to see some of these big games that we're about to break down.
Absolutely. So let's get into the schedule. Starting on Saturday, we have Houston, the Houston Gamblers, 1-2 against the Philadelphia Stars. Both teams 1-2. The Stars 2.5-point favorites, and we have a total in this game that has reached 46.5 points now. The Stars and Kate Cookus, one of the top flight offenses in the USFL last year. High expectations coming into this year, but they've stumbled a little bit out of the gate. They got slowed down last week in an upset loss to Pittsburgh, which is all defense, no offense, that team, right? And they were able to kind of make enough plays and take advantage of enough short fields by getting turnovers to, get the win there over Philadelphia. So the offense really hasn't picked up to where it left off last year with Case Cookus. And, the Houston team's much different than last year as well. I think that we're seeing, with this team, a lot of offense. They can move the ball as well. Defensively, they're the worst secondary in the USFL, letting up, I think 770 passing yards already this season. So their secondary is really struggling, and I think that makes for a good matchup for Philadelphia. We saw last week against Pittsburgh, a team with a good defensive front and a good defense really give them problems. Houston, very strong against the run, not strong against the pass. I think that's going to help the Stars offense get back on track here.
Yeah, I agree. I like the Stars in this game as well. I think, early season win against Memphis, and then, just two odd games. I mean, last week, let's just say it was extremely odd. The Mullets had 67 total yards passing. And somehow, and they kicked 5 field goals, and they were 1 for 4 in the red zone. but it was Cade Cookis' turnovers, as you mentioned. I think that was a big problem. But I think, as you mentioned earlier, Houston's defense not very good. I think there's a reason that Philadelphia is favored in this game, and I think they will come out victorious. I'll take 1 to 2.5 as well. The Stars, I just feel, are the better team. Their issues have been running the ball and pass protection. Maybe they don't get the running completely fixed this week, but they'll have enough in the passing game, I think, to win this one.
I think that's the key. You know, we say it all the time, styles makes fights, and that's the situation here with the Stars. They're playing a team, poor secondary, that they can get their passing game on track. That's what they want to do. I played over in this one. I think the number being a 46 is too low. Houston's a team that lets up 33 points per game. So you know the Stars are going to bring it on offense. And Houston's been able to move the football themselves. So their offense has been pretty good, putting up some big numbers. So I like over in this game. I think that's the big difference between, you know, the league this year and the league early last year is these teams are able to put up some points. So I played over. I've been kind of, you know, really diving in more to the totals than anything else so far in the league. But I think this is a good spot for the over because Philadelphia is going to be able to drive it. And we've seen Houston, you know, they got in a shootout against New Orleans, you know, which is the only undefeated team left in the USFL. You know, so they've been able to put up some points. So I think both teams score a lot here. I played over the total, but, you know, if I were to pick a side, wood or gun to my head, you know, I'm going to take the Stars here because I think they're going to be able to outscore them when it counts in the fourth quarter.
I'm with you, Stars. And I do like the over, too. I think these two teams, I think, can get both in the 20s.
Absolutely. So, you know, listen, another team that lets a lot of teams in the 20s, Memphis Showboats, giving up 6 points, 6-point underdogs at Michigan. Michigan looked very good the first 2 weeks, right? Great storyline of the league is, you know, there's been half of the teams lost their coaches, had to replace them, right? Could be good, could be bad. In this spot with Michigan, looks like it's addition by subtraction, right? Jeff Fisher is out. The conservative old school play calling is out. Mike Nolan comes in. Josh Love looks like a much better quarterback in his second year, you know, with the Panthers. And as a result, 2-8 last year, they started the season 2-0. So won as many games in the first 2 weeks as they did all year last year with Jeff Fisher. But they slipped up last week in their first home game at Ford Field, lost to the New Jersey Generals, who we're seeing start to click now. A team that got blown out in week 1, had a ton of mistakes against Birmingham, really starting to kind of catch their rhythm now offensively, you know, with DeAndre Johnson and you know, being able to move the ball. So Jersey got the upset over Michigan last week, kind of slowed down the hype with the Michigan Panthers, but they get the only team that hasn't won a game yet here in Memphis. Todd Haley's crew can score some points, but they can't stop anybody. You know, letting up, I believe it's 370 yards per game. You know, teams just putting up all kinds of numbers on 33 points per game at, you know, the Showboats defense. So they got in a crazy shootout last week. I laid the points at Houston, and that was a sweat, man. That was like that thing came down to the wire. So this Memphis team is all offense, no defense, and they're playing a Michigan team that can get to the quarterback. Breland Speaks has been one of the best defensive players so far. They have a good pass rush. I think that's going to give Memphis a lot of problems. But this is a game that I laid off on, Dave. I just wasn't comfortable laying the 6 points against a team that is back against the wall, 0-3, right? But I don't know. I couldn't really play Memphis because they can't stop anybody. And Michigan's the defense that can get stops.
Yeah. Memphis switching over to Brady White. I think he played for Memphis in college too, as well, if I remember. And then, you know, interesting last week, you know, I guess Michigan was struggling a little offensively, even though they dominated time of possession, won by that area by 10 minutes and still lost the game. Jersey just mauled them on the ground, almost 200 yards rushing. So, yeah, I think that was the issue there. But they went and switched at quarterback and I mentioned earlier, Carson Strong, guy from Nevada, came in for Josh Love and kind of did well. So I'm going to be curious to see who they do throw back there. I think they go back to Love, and I think he does just fine here. Like you mentioned, this defense, 99 points in 3 games. I just don't see how they stop anybody. But I think Brady White can keep up a little bit here, especially as we just saw kind of some weak spots in Michigan's defense last week. I would take the points. I feel like, Memphis got blown out once, but has been competitive in the other two games. I would take the points here.
Yeah, I can see why. It makes sense just because this is – and listen, I don't think Todd Haley's the greatest coach in this league, right? I think there's some kind of warts there as far as like what he does offensively. I don't think he does a good job of adapting to his players' strengths, right? We saw Jordan Tiamo struggle with Todd Haley last year in Tampa Bay a little bit. And, again, he goes back to the USFL, plays in the RPO system and dominates the league. So I think there's a lot to be desired with Todd Haley as a coach, but I think this is a spot, man. They came close last week. They feel like they're knocking on the door. They're 0-3. You got a Michigan team that suffered their first loss. Now they're unsure of what to do at quarterback. I like Michigan's front. Like I said, they can get after Memphis. It'll be interesting to see if Memphis is smart enough to kind of, run some screens, run the ball, keep them off balance so they're not just kind of teeing off on the quarterback. But it makes sense. I feel like I want to take the over on all these games, but I do think 44 might be a little bit low. But like I said, I didn't touch side or total in this one. This is the one game that I passed. It's a tough spot. But if I was going to do something, I probably would take the points here because these teams, it's tough to.
It reminds me of Orlando a little bit in the XFL.
It's tough to cover these big numbers.
And they could fight some weeks. And but the difference here, as much as you can hate on Haley, and we all can, we can laugh at him. It's got to be better than T-Buck. And I just think, So, they can be 0-3, but still be some fighters here. So these points I just think are valuable in this matchup, especially to me, a Michigan team, decent offense. But not one that scares me that can go out and hang 35-40 and really get too far away from you. I think we'll always be in the game with the points, and that's why I like to play the points in this one.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see as well. Does Michigan just kind of rely a little bit more on Reggie Corbin and the running game in this type of spot? They should be able to move the ball pretty effectively against Memphis, I would think. But, I think it's probably dog or pass here with Memphis. These teams they don't want to go 0-4 and kind of, toss the season before it even gets started, right? So I think they're going to be playing with a lot of motivation here. I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled off the upset, but it's just too many variables for me to touch, but definitely dog or pass. Let's move to our third game now. This is the one. This is, if you're going to watch a game,
you think this
is the one you want to watch. This is the one.
I know.
100%.
Top defense versus top offense. Just lay it out there. That's
New Orleans Breakers -2.5 against the New Jersey Generals. Total 44. Could be the top two teams. Like I said, Jersey looked really good, was able to run the ball, kind of got back on track. Now they're playing the New Orleans Breakers. And Dave, last year, this New Orleans team had me pulling my hair out week in and week out because they had these great offensive weapons. They had Canella, right? They had the tight end Canella. They had Johnny Dixon. They had Jay Adams, right? Sloter kept messing it up. Couldn't get them the ball. Couldn't score points. All these great players at the skill position couldn't get the job done. Now they bring in McLeod Bethel-Thompson from the CFL, right? From Toronto. He comes over here, lighting it up. 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, averaged, I think it was 10.3. No, it was in the first half, it was 10.3, but over 7 yards per play against Birmingham last week in an upset win. They scored at will. I bet them live at halftime because they were averaging 10.3 yards per play at half, and the teams were just trading touchdowns. And I said, you know what? I'm just more confident in New Orleans being able to continue to score than I am Birmingham. So I ended up playing New Orleans. It paid off. They got the upset. 3-0 team, only 3-0 team in the USFL. Small favorite here against New Jersey, but this could be a different type of game. New Jersey's going to try and slow this down. They're going to try and grind it out. They're going to try and keep them off the field. Now, I don't know if the key is this Generals defense got a little beat up in week 1 against Birmingham. Birmingham was able to put a big number on them. How much have they improved since the first week? Are they going to be able to slow down the Breakers offense?
Yeah. So for me, I think you're going to have a little bit of emotions at play here. New Jersey lost their first game of the year, right? And they've won the last two in pretty
Mhm.
resounding fashion, to a total of 48-16 over Michigan and Pittsburgh. And I think with New Orleans, that big win last week, I think a lot of people thought Birmingham's the best team in the league. And you could still think that. You're probably not necessarily off track, but getting that
Mhm.
emotional big win, upset, like you said, and then coming in and play this style,
It's
I think
letdown
it's going to
time.
be really, really hard for New
Yeah.
Orleans. I like Jersey in this one, plus 2.5. I think they have the right kind of balance, on offense. They're a very physical team, rushing team, like to control the line of scrimmage, and a great defense, like we mentioned earlier. So I favored Jersey in this one. I think they're the steady team where we got New Orleans good 3-0, like you said, right? But I think the emotions might have a letdown this week.
I think so too. I didn't bet the game yet. I want to see where this number goes. Do we get a 3? Do we get a 3.5 with Jersey? Right. I think that could be valuable. If not, this might be a game for me. I bet over already, so I punched that in. I think New Orleans is going to score points. Even if Jersey slows it down, I think Jersey's going to score points because
Yeah.
their offense looks like it's clicking now. Right after last week, and they kind of accepted their identity a little bit. Like you're seeing them use, the quarterback's mobility a lot more. And, I think they did in week 1. And, I think they're kind of finding their rhythm as an offense. So I played over 44, but I'm probably going to play a side. And it may just come down to which side of the 3 the line lands on. Like if
Yeah.
it lands under 3, I might play New Orleans. If it lands over 3, I might play New Jersey. If it's 3, I'll probably play New Jersey.
Yeah.
So I think I want to see where this line goes, but that's pretty much how I'm approaching it. But I do agree with you 100%. I think this is a letdown spot. This is a tough team to face. Just if you looked at the schedule, and I said before the season, I said, listen, New Orleans is going to be best team in this whole thing, right?
Mhm.
You're going to look at this schedule, and you're going to say, I said they're going to lose one game this entire year. You're going to look at the schedule, and you're going to say, it's going to be either one of these two,
Yeah.
Birmingham or New Jersey.
And if they came out with a split, they probably would have been all right with it.
Oh, they're probably super happy. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But that's my point is like if they lost last week, I'd probably be picking on the win this week. I think it's hard to beat these two teams, which are probably 2 and 3 in the USFL back to back. Right.
Yeah.
So, I think it's tough. So I'm leaning towards Jersey, but if it goes the other way, if I get, New Orleans -2, maybe I do that. I don't know. We'll see. But definitely strongest position is on the total, and will continue to be on the total played over 44 here.
Yeah. Like it. And I'm definitely playing Jersey, but we'll see. Like you said, I'm waiting for just a little bit, but I'm comfortable at 2. I think they win outright, but I'll hang in there and, like you said, maybe try and buy some 3s.
Yeah, and if I had to play the futures now, like I think that New Orleans is the best team in the league, and I do think if I had to
Yeah.
guess now that they would win this whole thing. But there's a lot of games left.
Yeah.
There's a
Well,
ton of games left, but I do think their win last week was not, upset win. They surprised. Like I think they're better than Birmingham.
okay.
Offensively, I love this team.
Yeah. I
I
love
think they're
Birmingham. I'm a
really
big
good,
Birmingham,
really good.
and
Yeah.
let's get right into them.
All right, perfect. So let's do the last game here. Birmingham Stallions -8 number continuing to rise against the Pittsburgh Maulers, my favorite team. I love this team.
The
Um
Maulers?
40. Oh yeah. Yeah. I bet the under every game. Cash,
Oh,
cash,
okay.
cash.
All right.
Every single game. Love this
Yeah.
team. Continue to bet the under. Bet the under again. This is the worst offense I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I say it week in and week out. Like this is the quarterback averages 60 yards a game. Last week was not an aberration. I want to say that the team averages like 80 yards per game because
Yeah.
the other guy got a little bit of run, but Troy Williams 63.5, I want to say, per game passing yards. Now they've leaned into his mobility, right? They've kind of trying to figure out what's worked. The offensive line looked a little bit better against Philadelphia. Is it really better or is it Philadelphia? I think we're going to find out this week because Birmingham, a little weak in the secondary. They can get after the quarterback. So we're going to find out.
Yeah, we are. But when you mess around, you find out real quick. And
That's right.
I think Pittsburgh's going to find out real quick. My favorite player in this league so far has been the quarterback for Birmingham, Alex McGough. Dude, he leads the league in completion percentage, 69%.
Yep.
Nice. And he also has 7 passing touchdowns, leading the league there. I don't know. The guy's got some flavor, right? With that long hair. And I just like him. He's got some sauce. I've liked hearing him on the sideline, but he's got a rocket arm too. And Birmingham's been riding that. They've scored 100 points in the first 3 games. Remember, back in week 2, they beat down Memphis 42-2. It was like, it was laughable how easy that was for them. In week 1, they beat a really good
Jersey
they smoked.
Team. Yeah, they smoked New Jersey in week. That game was not close. They were all over the quarterback.
Yeah. And I think they can do the same this week. You highlighted, I talked about it in the first spot where Pittsburgh didn't do much last week and still found a way. Well, they stay.
They're not going to find a way this week.
There's no finding ways. And I just think when I mentioned that game in week 2, 42-2, I'm not saying it's going to be 42-2 this week, but I think they can beat Pittsburgh very similar to what they did with Memphis. When you put that much pressure from an offensive standpoint on a team like Pittsburgh that can't score, I think this one could get rough and ugly quick. Yeah. So I like Birmingham in this one. I'll lay the points.
I think you're on the right side. I think Pittsburgh's defense can keep them in the game early, but eventually the dam's going to break. And when it breaks, it's going to break wide open because, I mean, the Pittsburgh defense is for real. Like, that front they cause a ton of problems. They got Reuben Foster. They got all kinds of guys on that defense.
Remember him?
Man. Yeah. And, so they can play. It's just they get nothing on offense. And that's kind of the challenge. I don't want to go too deep into this, but that's kind of like the challenge with some of these teams. So, like, Ray Horton as a coach is incredibly conservative. Like you mentioned, we're watching that game against Philadelphia, and he's in the red zone all day kicking field goals. 5 field goals they settled for, just field goal at the. And I was loving it because I was on the under, so I was like sweating earlier because there's like defensive touchdowns and everything you don't want to see when you're betting an under. But we got home anyway.
Playing for field goals.
Right, playing for field goals. Afraid to throw the ball. They're just like, it's 3rd and 20. We're going to run it. Like, kick a field goal, like, whatever. But you really, like, he was handed this roster. And now it's like, so now you have these players who were the worst team in the league last year. Get a new coach, right? Yeah, they have the worst roster. They have to learn a new system. They got new quarterbacks, learn a new system, all that stuff. Like, that's a disaster. And I think that's really the difference in the league is you see teams like now New Orleans, new coach, new quarterback, right? But everything else is pretty much the same. So John D. Filippo comes in, NFL experience. He gets McLeod Bethel Thompson.
Yeah. But what a fall from glory. Like he was the quarterback whisperer that everybody wanted.
Yep. And but he gets Bethel Thompson from Canada to come in, gets an upgrade at quarterback, and he's off and running. But these other new coaches, like, Pittsburgh, Houston, again, like, someone left, so the Houston guy has to take over. And it's just hard, like, implementing a new system with these rosters so they don't have the continuity that the other teams have. And I think it shows. I mean, I'm surprised Houston's offense is as good as it's been, but it's really tough for those teams that are just don't have the continuity, like Birmingham, like New Jersey, like Philadelphia, even like I said, even New Orleans, even though they got a new coach, a lot of the things are the same. They just got a better quarterback, and Michigan, same running back, same thing. They got a new coach, but I just think it's real tough. I don't know. Like, I think Horton's incredibly conservative, and that's something that bettors have to take advantage of going forward. But it's just like he almost like it's hard not to be because he was inherited this mess.
Yeah, worst team last year, like you said, by far. Like it wasn't. We were hammering against them versus good offenses.
Oh yeah,
And he is in an absolute mess of a situation. They did not.
And the defense is good. Well, so like good. If they can get anything going on offense. Which maybe by the end of the year they can, and they turn into like, a play down the stretch, like Orlando in the XFL, that sort of thing, right?
Or Arlington.
Right, or Arlington, yeah. Maybe the league just gives them a new quarterback or whatever. But but yeah, so I mean that was my big takeaway is so far is that like it's definitely the haves and the have-nots with like the teams that have consistency from the coaching standpoint, from the skill position players, people coming back are used to playing with each other. And I think there's a separation between the good teams and the bad teams from last year, and you can kind of see it early on. And it'll be interesting to see if that gap closes as the season progresses.
Yeah, I agree. The continuity is something that we've all kept our eyes on, but we've seen if it's really worked. And in some cases it has, right? Philly and Jersey were both really good last year, or good once again. But in some other spots, we're seeing bad be bad once again. And we're talking about Pittsburgh.
Yep, for sure, 100%. All right, man. Well, that's going to do it. We ran through the 4 games. We will be back next week. We'll do week 5. We'll do some XFL championship. Huge game coming up. So we want to end the season on a profitable note. But in the meantime, guys, if you haven't gotten the Discord, the link is below. Hop in there. Listen, we have an XFL channel. Hop in there, talk USFL. We're talking USFL in there as well in the Discord. Make sure you get in there, get involved. And plus, we have everything else going on. Every sport you can imagine. We have our professional handicappers dishing out picks. We have DFS stuff going on, prize picks, the whole 9, daily picks, same game parlays. Anthony Sharp report goes out daily, gives you insight in what the books are looking at and what they need from their side and how to leverage that into your daily wagers. So get involved, be a part of the community. Until next week, we'll see you then. Hopefully everything cashes.